I've always lived a straightforward life, content with a stable job and the quiet moments. My father taught me the importance of hard work and discipline, passing on everything he knew about welding. It wasn't a glamorous trade, but I took pride in my skills. I never needed much, just steady work and someone to share life with. That someone was Lucy, my high school sweetheart, who I believed would be my partner for life. But life has its twists. Our relationship began with lofty dreams and hope, but harsh realities soon set in. I put in long hours, often working away from home while Lucy attended college with the money I earned. I thought everything was fine until small issues began to surface, and our marriage started to crumble. One night, driving down the highway with the radio playing, I couldn't escape thoughts of Lucy and our broken past. I switched to a show about UFOs, hoping for a distraction. The truth was, I didn't just leave her, I ran, trying to outrun the pain. Let me explain, I'm Stan Shipman, and Lucy and I were married for 5 years. We were high school sweethearts and rushed into marriage, thinking love would see us through. But I was wrong. Money was never the problem. I've been a welder since I was young, trained by my dad. After high school, I breezed through welding school and quickly started my career, even doing underwater welding, which paid well. I earned enough to support Lucy through college. Now, she's a paralegal at a major law firm downtown. So why am I running down the freeway in the middle of the night? It all ties back to the woman I married and the negative influence of her friend. Lucy used to be sweet, but over time, things changed. I cared deeply for her and didn't hesitate to pay for her education, even though her parents doubted my financial stability. They didn't think I could handle the expense, but I proved them wrong. She graduated debt-free because of my support. But everything began to change after she started her job at McMaster and Fredericks. Initially it seemed fine, but soon her co-workers' influence took hold. She started going out with them weekly, which I tolerated at first. But soon it became twice a week, including Fridays, our date night. When I mentioned it, she dismissed my concerns, suggesting we could go out on Saturdays instead, and insisting she deserved time with her friends. Eventually, her nights out grew longer, and her calls often went straight to voicemail. One Saturday morning, I confronted her, asking about her late-night outings and whether she was seeing someone else. She denied it, claiming they only went for food after drinks. I asked her to stop, and she agreed, promising to cut back on her Friday outings. Things seemed better for a while, but soon she slipped back into her old ways. Feeling suspicious, I installed a tracking app on her phone. One Friday, I followed her to a bar and found her with a group, including a man she was too friendly with. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring, and when I asked her about it, she claimed she took it off to avoid losing it. One of the men, Jake, stood up, introduced himself, and made a snide remark. Out dancing with my wife. Trying to assert himself, he squeezed my hand, but I squeezed back until he winced. I was just going to ask your wife to dance, if that's okay, he said, rubbing his hand. I looked at Lucy and asked, is that true? She nodded slowly, and I agreed, saying, go ahead, but remember she's my wife, and I'll be watching as Lucy danced. I took Jake's seat and ordered a beer. Most of the group dispersed, but one woman remained beside me. You don't own her, you know, she said. And you are, I asked. Marie Compton. I've been mentoring Lucy, showing her the ropes, she replied. So Marie, who are you to give me advice about my marriage? I asked. I'm her friend, and as I said, I'm mentoring her. The partners see her potential, and she needs to expand her horizons, she insisted. Her tone irritated me, and I wondered what ideas she was putting in Lucy's head. Well, I'm her husband, and if anything is affecting our marriage, I need to know Stan. Lucy needs to broaden her experiences, Marie countered. She's only ever known you in college. She needs to explore. Or explore more. Or maybe something else, I retorted. No need to be crude, Marie said. But yes, maybe she needs to see more of life. You might benefit from it. Too. Oh, really? How? I asked. She might learn things that she can bring back to you. I mean, you must have someone on the side when you're away for work, right? She insinuated. No, Marie, I work, get paid, and come home. I love Lucy and wouldn't betray her. Maybe you should broaden your horizons, too, she suggested with a smirk. I take my vows seriously. And I trust Lucy does as well, I responded. I notice you're not wearing a ring, ever been married twice, she shrugged. Let me guess you cheated on both of them, right? I challenged. She shrugged again. Yeah, I do what I want well, Lucy's spoken for, and I expect you to respect that. I said firmly. Marie laughed lightly. Sure, you keep thinking that, she replied. Lucy and Jake returned from the dance floor, and I got up so she could sit between me and Marie, keeping Jake away. He looked annoyed, but I didn't care. So Lucy tells me you're a welder. What's the pay like? $15 an hour. Jake asked, trying to bait me. Actually, I make over $35 an hour, more if I work underwater. I even paid for Lucy's college, I replied. You're paying off her loans, he inquired. No, she has no loans. I covered the costs entirely. I also bought her that new Toyota, I answered. Didn't realize welders made that kind of money. But I bet you have plenty of fun when you're away for work, right? He joked, nudging me. No, I work 16-hour days when I'm away, and I take my vows seriously, I stated firmly. Jake smirked, but I didn't like where the conversation was heading. I turned to Lucy and asked, Did you drive here? Yes, she replied. Good, I've had enough for tonight. I'm going home and I expect you to follow soon, I said, getting up and deliberately spilling my cold beer into Jake's lap. Oops, sorry. Better go change those pants. Jake was furious but backed down when I glared at him. Smart move, I remarked. Turning to Lucy, I asked, You coming? I'm right behind you, she said softly. Marie gave me a cold stare, but I ignored it as I walked out. Lucy arrived home just minutes after I did, storming in angrily. What the hell was that? You embarrassed me, she snapped. I embarrassed you. I shot back. Are you following me? She demanded. No, I just came by for a beer and saw you with your friends. I lied, something I'd never done before. If anyone should be embarrassed, it's me. Seeing my wife acting like a giddy schoolgirl with some guy and without her wedding ring made me feel like you're ashamed of me. Is that it? Her expression softened. Of course not. I just work with these people, and Jake's the one I collaborate with the most. And Marie, she's my mentor, higher up in the firm. Does that mentorship include advice on marriage? I asked. What do you mean? She responded. While you were dancing, Marie was telling me you need to broaden your horizons. I asked if that also meant being intimate with others, and she didn't deny it. Be honest, Lucy, have you been unfaithful? I pressed. No, I haven't, she replied, but she couldn't meet my gaze. You know I could never forgive that, I reminded her. Marie had mentioned that she suspected Lucy might stray when I wasn't around. Are you? She inquired. Absolutely not, I replied firmly. We've known each other since the 6th grade. Have I ever betrayed you? She shook her head. I love you too much to hurt you. I work long hours, often 16-hour shifts. You've seen my pay stubs, right? Yes, I know, she responded. You know I've been supporting you, buying you a car, paying the bills, and even saving for a house. You can tell Marie to keep her advice to herself. She's been divorced twice for infidelity, I added. Lucy looked stunned. How do you know that? She asked. She told me herself, almost boasting about it. I don't trust her or Jake. They're up to something, and I don't want you caught in it. You haven't done anything wrong, right? No, I haven't, she assured me. I just enjoy spending time with them, but I'd like to spend time with you too. Do you think you could start joining me again? Of course, she said, hugging me tightly. I'm sorry, it's okay, I replied. There are just 3 things I've ever wanted: to be married to you, to become the best welder, and to start a family with you. She smiled and said, Well, you've got the first 2 ready to work on the third. I smiled back, agreeing. Let's do it. That night, we stayed together in the master bedroom. And for the next couple of months, things seemed to improve. Lucy stayed home on Fridays, and I made more of an effort to be affectionate, never bringing up Marie or Jake again, trusting Lucy to do what was right. Then, one Friday night, I returned home to find the house dark except for candles on the dining table. The aroma of lasagna filled the air, and I thought Lucy had planned something special. The table was set with our finest china, and when I turned around, she was wearing one of the shortest dresses I'd ever seen, accentuating her legs, knowing how much I admired them. The dress barely covered her and had an open back. She embraced me, kissed me deeply, and asked, Do you like what you see? Definitely, I responded. Good, tonight's going to be special, she said, with a smile. It's a surprise, so go freshen up, and I'll prepare dinner. After I cleaned up, I returned to find the lasagna served, wine poured, and Lucy seated at the table. I told her I couldn't decide what looked better, her or the meal. She laughed and said, I hope you enjoy both tonight. As I ate, I started feeling odd and lightheaded. I attempted to stand but nearly collapsed. Confused, I glanced at Lucy, struggling to speak before everything went dark. When I came to, I found myself undressed and restrained in a chair in our bedroom. My arms and legs were zip-tied, and a strange device was fastened around my waist. Angry, I shouted, Lucy, what is going on? She entered the room, but she wasn't alone. Marie was with her. What is this? I demanded. Let me out of this chair, Marie coolly responded. No, it's better if you stay put and watch as your wife explores new things. You drugged me and tied me up for this, I shouted. Yes, Marie replied. Lucy knew you wouldn't agree, so I gave her something to knock you out. Now you can watch, and there's nothing you can do about it. I glared at Lucy, filled with rage. You went along with this. Do you know what this means? I asked. I'm sorry, she replied, but Marie said it's just a game, it won't change anything, and I still care about you. That's not true, and you know it, I retorted. I told you I wouldn't tolerate infidelity. And what is this contraption you put on me? It's a reminder of who's in charge now, Lucy said. Release me immediately, or we're over, I warned. Marie stepped forward and gagged me. You'll stay quiet while your wife enjoys herself with others, she sneered. I tried to move my head to avoid the gag, but I couldn't. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't break free. Marie stepped out and opened the door, letting Jake and another man from Lucy's office in. They looked at me and laughed. Looks like the loser is all set, Jake sneered. He's not cooperating, Marie said. Jake punched me hard in the face, then again, leaving a metallic taste of blood in my mouth. Lucy screamed, Don't hurt him, you promised. I owe him for ruining my clothes. Now he'll watch while I take his wife, Jake said, tearing Lucy's dress. Lose the underwear, he ordered. Lucy hesitated but then handed them to Jake, who threw them at me after smelling them. Lucy knelt and began performing for Jake while staring directly at me. I trembled with rage, but Jake and Marie just laughed. She's pretty skilled, isn't she? Jake taunted. After he finished, Lucy turned to the other man. I shut my eyes, unable to bear watching. You enjoy this, don't you? Marie asked, recording everything. Admit it, she pushed, but I shook my head. When Lucy was done, Jake led her to the bed. Time for the main event, he said, and I kept my eyes closed as I heard Lucy's gasps. Better than your husband? Jake asked, and she responded, Oh yes, much better. In that moment, my love for her disappeared completely. I had heard of men who found excitement in seeing their wives with others, but all I felt was pure hatred. They continued for the next hour while Marie recorded it all. When they finished, Jake and the other man approached me, mocking, Did you enjoy the show? They laughed and then shoved Lucy and Marie aside, urinating on me, soaking my face. Nausea swept over me as Lucy laughed. Jake leaned in close, threatening, If you say a word about this, I'll make your life miserable. From now on, your wife is mine. I'll do as I please. After they left, Marie warned, Don't make trouble, or it'll get worse. She told Lucy to release me once she was gone. Lucy removed the gag, cut the ties, and unlocked the device. She started to explain, but I interrupted her, grabbed my clothes, and dialed emergency services. What are you doing? She asked, panicking. I informed the operator of the assault and illegal restraint. Lucy frantically tried to reach for her phone and keys, but I blocked her. You're not going anywhere, I said. Please don't press charges. I don't want to go to jail, she begged. Believe me, jail is the safest place for you right now, I replied coldly. Get dressed, the police will be here soon. You don't know what Jake and Marie are capable of. They'll come after you, she warned. Get dressed, I repeated. Lucy, sensing I was serious, put on her clothes quietly. Her phone buzzed in my pocket with a message from Marie. Everything okay? She asked. I replied, Everything's fine. He's not thrilled, but he'll manage, hoping Marie would buy it. When Lucy returned to the living room, the police had arrived. I let them in, and they immediately sensed something was wrong. One officer took my statement, called for an ambulance, and documented my injuries, while another spoke with Lucy in the bedroom. After conferring outside, they came back, and Lucy was led out in handcuffs, crying, Please, don't let them arrest me, it was just a joke. I turned away, shaking my head. 4 officers, including paramedics, soon arrived. A female officer escorted Lucy away, while the officer taking my statement informed me that Lucy was being arrested for unlawful confinement, drugging, and sexual assault. We need to take you to the hospital for blood and urine tests to identify what substances you were given, he said. I agreed, understanding that additional evidence could be useful. You should also consider getting a restraining order, he added, handing me a card for an attorney from the DA's office. She'll meet you at the hospital. I thanked him and accompanied the paramedics, who performed a quick assessment during the ride. Upon arrival at the hospital, they conducted a thorough examination, collected samples, and provided pain relief. Just as I started to feel at ease, a woman entered. Stan Shipman, she inquired. That's me, I replied. I'm Linda Calloway, the assistant DA handling your case. How are you feeling? She asked. I've had better days, but I'm managing, I responded. She updated me on the situation, explaining that Marie, Jake, and another man had been arrested. However, they might be released due to their company's influence. I'm pursuing a restraining order for you, she informed me. Thank you. Do you think it will be effective? I asked. It might help, but I can't make any promises, she replied honestly. I acknowledged this, saying, I'll just have to handle whatever comes. She nodded. For now, they'll remain in custody until Monday. You might want to consider hiring a divorce lawyer unless you plan to stay with your wife. No, I'm done with her, I said firmly. She mentioned that I'd stay overnight, as my apartment was now a crime scene. She also inquired if I owned any firearms, to which I replied that I did not. After that, I drifted off to sleep and woke when they transferred me to a private room. The next morning, my parents visited and I recounted everything. My father was livid. What are you planning to do? He asked. I'm divorcing her, I stated. Good. Let me find you an attorney, he offered, also agreeing to give me a ride home once I was released. Later, Lucy's parents stopped by, visibly distressed and ashamed of her actions. Her father asked if I intended to proceed with the divorce, and I confirmed. We're deeply sorry, her mother said. If she needs a place to stay, she's welcome with us. I thanked them, appreciating their understanding. After they left, a couple of hours passed before a doctor examined me and approved my discharge. I notified my dad, and he and my mum arrived just as I finalized the paperwork. After the nurse gave me instructions, they wheeled me to the car, and we headed home. Once at the apartment, my dad helped me to the door, and we exchanged goodbyes. Call if you need anything, he reminded me. Thanks, Dad, I replied. Inside, I noticed the apartment had been searched by the police, and I found a message on the answering machine, dead meat. The number was private, and I realized it was an audio clip from a Rocky movie, not a direct threat. Then, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I recognized a brunette who seemed familiar from the night I met Jake. I turned on my phone's camera before opening the door slightly, keeping the chain on. Yes, I asked. A woman's voice replied softly, Mr. Shipman, that's me. And you are Holly Brinkman. I work with your wife. May I come in? Are you alone? I questioned cautiously. She confirmed, so I unchained the door and let her inside. What can I do for you, Holly? I inquired, noticing her unease. Without speaking, she handed me a manila envelope. What's this? I asked, taking it. Please open it, she whispered. I went to the kitchen, put on gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints, and opened the envelope. Inside were photographs of a dead man, hands bound behind his back. Who is this? I asked, tension in my voice. That's my husband, Brian, she answered, tears welling up. Did you report this to the authorities? Yes, but they ruled it a suicide. The firm we work for has connections. They influence the police and even some judges. Did Jake play a role in this? I probed, considering the implications. I'm not sure, but it's possible he ordered it. Why are you still working there? I pressed. I don't have a choice, she admitted, voice shaking. You're not just a legal secretary, are you? I realized. No, my husband resisted them, and it cost him his life. I'm forced to stay and comply, she revealed. So, you're trapped. Yes, I'm basically at their disposal, assisting the attorneys and their clients. And Marie? I asked, piecing things together. She's like the orchestrator. She decides our roles, and Lucy, I hesitated. She was being prepared for the same, Holly confirmed. I discovered a note tucked inside the envelope, with words cut from magazines back off, or this could be you. Did you see this? I asked, showing her. No, it was delivered to my apartment this morning with instructions to give it to you. Would you testify to the DA? I asked. No, I need to survive. You don't understand how dangerous these people are, especially Marie. How many people at the firm are aware of this? I asked, trying to gauge the scope. Everyone at the executive level knows, she replied. Thank you for bringing this to me, Holly. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, guiding her to the door. You're a good man. Lucy's fortunate to have you, she added with a sorrowful smile. Thanks, I replied, watching her leave and scanning the street for any watchers. Once it seemed safe, I secured the door. The contents of the envelope shifted everything. I still intended to divorce Lucy, but now the stakes were higher. After dealing with Jake, Lucy might be wishing for a reprieve. I stopped the video I was watching and called Linda's personal number. This is Linda Calloway, she answered. I quickly informed her about the voicemail and the envelope. This changes everything. Bring it to me immediately, she instructed, giving me her address. I decided it was best to leave town for a while. I packed a bag, brought along the restraints Lucy had used on me, and loaded my truck with some welding tools. After calling my boss to request time off, which he approved due to my vacation days, I double-checked everything, locked up, and drove to Linda's condo, arriving within 30 minutes. Linda was taken aback by the photographs and the note. I also recorded my conversation with the woman who delivered this. I told her. Let me see, she requested. I played the video, and she was stunned. This explains a lot. Can I get a copy? I allowed her to save the video from my phone. Then, I remembered Lucy's phone in my pocket and handed it to her. What's this? She asked. It's Lucy's phone. I took it the night Jake attacked me. There might be useful information on it. I'll have someone analyze it, she said thoughtfully, then hesitated. Maybe I should involve state or federal authorities. If what Holly says is true, our local police can't be trusted. What will you do? She asked me. I'm leaving town for a while, I replied. Let me know where you are, she advised. Will do, I responded, leaving without a clear destination in mind. I took out as much cash as I could, keeping a lookout for anyone who might be tailing me. The images of the man who had been taken out lingered in my mind, reminding me that if I wasn't careful, I could be next. Late that night, I decided to reach out to an old friend. Yeah, answered a rough voice on the other end. Dave, it's Stan. What's up? I've got a bit of a situation. Can I crash at your place for a few days? Sure, just grab a couple of six-packs on your way over. See you soon. Feeling relieved, I hit the road and stopped at a convenience store to grab some beer, ice and coffee. I also picked up a pack of cigarettes for Dave, knowing he'd appreciate the gesture since he was offering me a place to stay for a while. Dave Brolin was about 15 years older than me and had worked with my dad, which is how we met. He became like an older brother, teaching me a lot while we worked together in my dad's shop. He had a rough upbringing. His father died from mesothelioma after years in the shipyard, and his sister Beverly took care of their mother until she passed away from cancer about a year ago. I'd known Beverly for a while. She had that girl next door charm, but we were more like siblings. I hadn't seen her in ages and was curious to catch up. Dave had married young but divorced after catching his wife with a co-worker. He never remarried and now looked after Beverly, who lived with him. I reached Dave's house around 2:30 a.m. with my belongings and met him on the porch. Hope you brought the beer, he joked. Of course, I replied, handing him the cigarettes. Inside, I noticed a stunning blonde descending the stairs in pajamas. Who's the blonde bombshell? I teased. You don't recognize me, idiot, she shot back. It was Beverly, grown up, fit, and looking completely different from the girl I remembered. Beverly? Is that really you? Yeah, genius. What are you doing here so early? Did Lucy kick you out? Not exactly, I replied, my voice tight as I touched my bruised face. Beverly's tone softened. I'm sorry, Stan. What happened? That's why I'm here, I said. Grab a beer and tell us, Dave suggested. I grabbed 3 beers, handed them out, and joked with Beverly about her age. She flipped me off with a smile, then urged me to spill everything. I told them the whole story about Lucy Marie, Jake, and showed them the video of my meeting with Holly. They were stunned into silence. Damn, Dave finally said. Do they know where you are? I don't think so. No one followed me. Good. We're up on this hill and can see anyone coming. I still have the guns I got from your dad. You remember how to shoot, right? Yeah, but I haven't touched a gun since then. No worries. I'll take you out back to practice. Bev's become a pretty good shot too, he said, grinning as Beverly flashed a mischievous smile. Does your dad know you're here? Dave asked. No, I haven't told anyone yet. I need to inform the assistant DA though. I didn't decide to come here until I was already on the road. I'll call your parents in the morning. Turn off your phone and take out the battery, just in case there's a tracker, Dave suggested. I switched off the phone and removed the battery. Lucy's arraignment is on Monday, Beverly asked. Yeah, the DA hopes she'll be held without bail. But I'm not sure. Based on what Holly told me, you can stay here as long as you need, Dave offered. I've got work in a week, but feel free to stick around. Thanks. I'm planning on taking 2 weeks off, so hopefully things will be settled by then. If you need anything, just ask, Dave reassured me. He glanced at Beverly and added, she'll keep you busy, but you're our guest. Your folks always treated us well, so just relax and enjoy the country air. Beverly stood up, yawning. I've got to get up early to make breakfast. Hope you like omelets and hash browns, she said with a glance at me. Sounds perfect, I replied. She waved goodnight and headed upstairs. After her door closed, Dave and I stepped outside to smoke. What's her story? I asked. I thought she'd be married with kids by now. She never found anyone she cared about, Dave explained. Dated a few guys, but none of them measured up. Measured up to what? I asked. Dave looked at me seriously. You? She's always had a thing for you, really, I said, surprised. Yep, the only reason she never told you was because of Lucy. You're serious. As serious as a heart attack. I've even heard her say your name in her sleep. That's a little too much information, I said, feeling awkward. Dave just smirked. It is what it is. When did she turn into such a knockout? I asked, shaking my head. She's always been pretty. You just had blinders on with Lucy. Yeah, I guess I did, I admitted quietly. Look, if you and Beverly end up together, that's fine by me. Just don't hurt her, okay? She's had feelings for you for a long time. I'm done with Lucy, I assured him. Good. Just don't lead her on, he added. We finished our cigarettes, and Dave headed to bed. I followed soon after and fell asleep quickly. I woke up to Beverly shouting, "Rise and shine." It was 8:30 a.m. After my morning routine and a quick shower, I got dressed and left my wedding ring on the dresser. When I came downstairs, Beverly was making breakfast in a short t-shirt and cut-off shorts, her hair pulled back. She looked stunning, and I wondered why I hadn't noticed before. "Smells great," I said. She smiled. "Coffee's ready. Want butter pecan creamer?" "Absolutely," I replied. "Help yourself. Just save some for us," she said with a wink. I poured myself a cup and joined Dave, who was reading the paper. "Morning," I said. "Morning," he replied, still focused on the news. "There's an article about a lawyer getting arrested. It might be related to your case." I glanced at the article, but it didn't provide much information, so I handed it back. By then, Beverly had brought breakfast to the table. "This is fantastic," I said after a bite. "Glad you like it," she smiled. After breakfast, Dave stood up. "I'm heading into town for a bit. If you need to call the DA, use the house phone." "Thanks," I said. Beverly handed him a list, and he left. I turned to her. "Need help with the dishes?" "Not necessary, but I'd appreciate it," she replied with a grin. I helped clear the table, and she tossed me a towel while she washed the dishes. "I see you're not wearing your ring. Are you really going to divorce her?" she asked. "Yeah, I told her I wouldn't put up with cheating, and I meant it," I replied firmly. "Good," she said with a small smile. "Glad to see you've still got some backbone." "So, what's your story? How have things been for you?" I asked. She shrugged. "Okay, I guess anyone special in your life?" I asked, curious. "There was, but he was taken. Besides, I had to take care of my parents," she said, looking a bit sad. "Yeah, I heard," I said sympathetically. "I worked as a waitress to help out after Dad passed away, and when Mum got too sick, I stayed home to care for her," she explained. "I'm sorry, don't be. I don't regret it. I just hope someone will be there for me when I'm that age," she said with a soft smile. "So what did you do after your mum passed away?" I asked. "I had to sell the house to cover the expenses. Dave let me keep what was left, and I've been living here ever since. He even offered to send me to college, but I turned him down," she added. "Why?" I asked, surprised. "I want to make it on my own. I'm working at McDonald's and taking business classes at night," she said proudly. "Good for you," I said to Dave. "He's still talking about starting his own fabrication business and wants me to manage the finances," Beverly mentioned. "Still on that, huh?" I chuckled. "Yeah, he does custom work for the locals and earns a decent income. His dream is to operate from his shop full-time. Maybe he'll show me the shop while I'm staying here," I suggested. "That'd be nice," she agreed. We fell silent, and for the first time, I found myself truly admiring her. She caught my gaze and raised an eyebrow. "What are you staring at?" she asked. "I think I'm looking at the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," I admitted. She blushed and glanced down. "Stop joking," she said. "I'm not kidding. I respect everything you've accomplished, taking care of your parents, putting yourself through school. I just wish I had realized it sooner." "Well, you were too focused on Lucy," she replied with a grin. "Yeah, you're right," I conceded. With the dishes finished, Beverly dried her hands and faced me with a serious expression. "She used you, you know," she said bluntly. I sighed. "I think you're right." "I saw through her a long time ago," she continued, shaking her head. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, curious. "You wouldn't have listened. She had you wrapped around her little finger," Beverly said with a touch of frustration. "All I wanted was to keep her happy," I muttered, looking down. "And look where that got you," she replied, her voice rising. "She got her degree, a new car, and everything else all on your dime. Then, when she was done, she dumped you. I'm glad she's locked up, or I'd give her a piece of my mind. I believe you would," I said, smiling to lighten the mood. Beverly crossed her arms and looked at me intensely. "I need to know one thing." "What's that?" I asked. "Are you going to fall for her tears and take her back?" I shook my head firmly. "No, that's not happening." "Good," she said, visibly relieved. "Just don't forget that." Without warning, Beverly pulled off her t-shirt and tossed it aside, revealing herself to me for the first time. She quickly undressed, came over, wrapped her arms around me, and kissed me passionately. We made love in the kitchen, bathed in the light of the morning sun streaming through the window. "I love you, Stan Shipman. I've always loved you. Don't ever forget that," she whispered afterward, her voice soft. "I love you too, Beverly," I replied, still catching my breath. "I wish we could stay like this forever." "That sounds lovely," she smiled, "but I doubt my brother would be thrilled." She laughed, and I kissed her deeply again, but then a thought struck me. I pulled back, worried. "I just realized I didn't use protection. Don't worry, I'm on the pill," she reassured me with a smile. "Honestly, I wouldn't mind if you got me pregnant." "I'd love to have your kids. I'll hold you to that," I said, relieved. "We should tidy up before Dave returns," she suggested, stretching as she got up. "I need to prep the meat for tonight." "Why don't you go shower first?" "Okay, I'll head up." "What's the meat for?" I asked. "We barbecue on Sundays if the weather's nice." "You like venison, right?" She grinned. "Yeah, but it's been years since I've had any," I said with a smile. "Good, I shot it myself with Dave's .50 flintlock and dressed it out in the field," she said proudly. "You're something else." "I'm impressed," I laughed. "I know Dave's flintlock is at least 49 inches long." "Did you load it yourself?" I asked, intrigued. "Of course, patched round ball with 100 grains of powder. I even molded the bullet," she said with a playful wink. "Wow. Do you like fishing too?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I love fishing. I bait my own hooks and clean my own catch," she replied, clearly proud of her skills. "Is there anything you haven't done?" I asked sarcastically. "I haven't rebuilt the transmission in Dave's truck yet, but I did help him with the engine," she laughed. "I'm definitely smitten," I said, kissing her. She kissed me back and added, "Now hurry up and shower. I'll join you soon." I went upstairs and got into the shower, and a few minutes later, Beverly joined me. "Just wait until tonight when we go to bed," she teased. "By the way, you're sleeping with me from now on." "My bed's bigger than yours, won't Dave mind?" I asked, unsure. "Nope, we're both adults," she winked. After our shower, we dressed and headed back downstairs. "I need to call the DA and let her know where I am," I said. Beverly pointed to a cordless phone. "Use that one." I picked it up, almost forgetting it was long distance. Linda answered on the second ring. "Linda Calloway speaking." "Linda, it's Stan Shipman." "I'm calling to update you on my location, Stan." I was worried. "This is a long-distance call. Where are you?" she asked. "I'm staying with an old family friend and turned off my cell for safety," I explained. "Got it. I'll keep you in the loop. The feds are looking into the firm where your wife works. I also contacted a top divorce attorney in the area for you. Hope that's okay." "No problem. I appreciate it," I replied. "She expects to hear from you tomorrow. If anyone can help, it's her," Linda added. "Thanks. I'll reach out," I said, noting down the details. Linda shared more information about the arraignment before we ended the call. When I hung up, Dave had returned, and I helped him bring in the groceries. "I called your parents," he said. "They were worried, but I told them you're staying here." "Thanks. I appreciate that," I replied. That evening, we grilled the venison and enjoyed dinner outside on the deck. Afterward, we all pitched in to clean up. Dave and I grabbed a beer and stepped outside for a smoke while Beverly finished up in the kitchen. "So, are you going to be sleeping in her room?" Dave asked, grinning. I felt uneasy discussing it since Bev was his sister. Yeah, I think so," I replied awkwardly. "Is this going to be a permanent thing?" Dave's tone turned serious. "I think so," I answered with confidence. "I just need to finalize my divorce." "Do you love her?" Dave asked, meeting my gaze. "Yeah, I do," I replied without hesitation. "Good, it's about time you got your head on straight," he said, smiling as he patted my shoulder. "Bev's a grown woman. She can make her own choices. I just don't want her to get hurt." "I'd never hurt her," I promised. "Glad to hear that." "Welcome to the family," Dave said, extending his hand. I shook it, and we shared a firm hug. "Just don't keep me up all night." "All right," Dave laughed. I chuckled and nodded. "I'll try my best." That night, after Beverly and I made love, I held her close, thinking about the future. It had been a long time since I felt content. "What's on your mind?" she asked softly, resting her head on my chest. "The future," I said. "Oh," she lifted her head to look at me. "Yeah, what do you want from life? Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?" I asked. "I'm not one for chasing a career," she said thoughtfully. "I just want a loving husband and a family." That's all I need. What about your classes? I asked, curious. They're mostly for Dave. He'll need help with the business, she explained. And what do you want? I'm like you, I said. I just want a loyal wife and a family. I thought I had that with Lucy, but it didn't work out, she smiled. And your job, I love it, I replied, but sometimes I'm away for weeks. Can you handle that? She laughed. My brother's a welder, remember? I know what it's like. As long as you come back to me, I'll be fine. I looked at her, feeling a peace I hadn't known in years. I wish I'd found you before Lucy. Me too, she said. But we'll get through this together. We're a team and I'll always have your back, she said with warmth. I love you, I told her, leaning in for a kiss. I love you more, she whispered, holding me tightly. That night, I drifted off feeling genuinely cherished. The next morning, Beverly was up early. After making breakfast, she kissed me before heading out, reminding me that she had class after her shift. I'll be home by 9:30. You guys fend for yourselves, she said with a grin. I love you too, I replied, feeling touched. Once she left, Dave came downstairs, joking. No kiss for me. Beverly laughed, gave him a quick peck, and said, stay out of trouble, as she walked out the door. I glanced at the clock. I need to call that divorce lawyer, I said. Dave gestured to the phone, so I dialed. Law office of Bernice Goodwin, a friendly voice answered. I introduced myself, mentioning that Bernice was expecting my call. Hold on a moment, she said. Soon, another voice came on. Bernice Goodwin speaking. How can I assist? This is Stan Shipman. Linda Calloway gave me your contact information. Ah, yes, I've been waiting for your call. Usually I prefer face-to-face meetings, but I understand this situation is different, she said. That's fine with me, I replied. We can manage most of it online. Tell me everything, she instructed. I went over the details, and she listened intently. What are you aiming for? She asked. No alimony and my fair share of the assets, I responded. We can achieve that, she assured me. Your wife's legal troubles will strengthen your case. Do you own any property? No, we're renting, I said. Would you like to take legal action against Marie and Jake? I'd advise suing for emotional distress rather than alienation of affection. It's more effective. Do what you think is best, I replied. I'll get started. Do you have an email? I shared my contact details, and she said, I'll send you documents, including a contract and a checklist. You'll also need to pay a retainer. Can you handle that today? Yes, I agreed. Great. Once everything is in order, I'll have the papers served. Any questions? No questions, I answered. Her assistant took my credit card info for the retainer, and after hanging up, I checked my email. I found 2 documents from Bernice, signed the contract, sent it back with a receipt, and reviewed her advice on securing my finances. Using online banking, I opened a new account and transferred half of our savings into it. I paid off and cancelled Lucy's credit card, but kept mine active for the retainer payment. By early afternoon, I had completed all the tasks. Dave then took me to a shop where he was fixing a trailer for a local farmer. I helped out, finding it relaxing to keep my hands busy. Around 3, we received a call. Dave picked up and handed the phone to me. It's your lawyer, he said. This is Stan, I answered. Stan, it's Linda Calloway. I've got bad news. The judge set a low bail and released them, Linda said, sounding tense. How is that possible? I asked, feeling my stomach drop. They probably have the judge on their payroll. There's a protection order in place, but it's only as good as the paper. It's on. Stay where you are for now. The feds are monitoring them, but I can't ensure your safety, she explained. Great, so what now? Stay put. I'll handle things from here. Reach out if you need anything, she said. All right, I replied, feeling uneasy. After the call, I told Dave the judge let them go. Damn, you should call your parents, Dave suggested. I agreed and called my dad, who picked up on the second ring. Dad, it's Stan, I said, trying to sound calm. How are you holding up? He asked, sounding worried. I'm okay, but I wanted to let you know that the judge released Lucy and her friends. Be on alert. They might try to find me. Don't worry, we won't say anything. Are you still down at John Harrison's place? He asked. It struck me that he already knew where I was, making me suspect that Lucy and her friends might be there now. I decided to keep up the pretense. No, I'm about 50 miles south of there, staying in a motel. I lied. All right, as long as you're safe, my dad said, sounding tense. I'll be heading out tomorrow, moving east. I continued with the story. Just let us know where you end up, he replied. Can I talk to Mom? I asked, feeling something was off. She's in the bathroom, he said, his voice unsteady. I thought I heard faint sounds in the background, raising my suspicions. Okay, tell her I love her, I said. I will. Love you, son, he replied, and we ended the call. I immediately reached out to Linda. I think Lucy and her friends are at my parents' house, I said, feeling anxious. I'll dispatch federal agents right away. Stay where you are, she instructed firmly. After the call, I informed Dave, I think they're at my parents' place looking for me. Do you think they'll believe your story? Dave asked. I hope so, at least for a little while. I should probably find a new place to lay low, I said, pacing nervously. No, you're staying here. Let me tidy up, and I'll speak with the sheriff. Don't go anywhere, Dave said with determination. I nodded, but I wasn't sure how long we had before Lucy and her friends saw through my lie. A couple of hours later, as Dave left for town, Linda called back, her voice filled with tension. Stan, you were right. Lucy Marie, Jake, and some hired thugs went to your parents' house after the hearing. They tied up your parents, but your folks didn't reveal your location. We have an APB out for them, and we've detained one of their guys. But he's staying silent. Any idea where they're heading, she asked, her tone uneasy. No, but it sounds like they didn't believe my story, I said grimly. Here, talk to your dad. My father's voice came through, shaky but relieved. Stan, they didn't fall for it, but we're okay. I think Lucy and her crew are heading your way. Why do you think that? I asked, my heart pounding. I overheard Lucy talking, he replied. You should warn Linda. I will, Dad. Stay safe, I responded. Linda came back on the line. Where exactly are you? She asked. I gave her my location and asked if Lucy might track me down. She knows, Linda said. We'll send someone quickly. I hung up and made my way back to the house. But as I stepped out of the shop, I heard a familiar voice. Well, thought you could outsmart us. Huh? Jake sneered, brandishing a weapon. Behind him, Marie and Lucy stood next to an SUV, looking smug. Jake waved the gun at me. Move. I had no choice but to get into the SUV. Lucy slid in beside me, smirking. This won't end well for you, I warned. Doesn't matter, she replied coldly. It'll be too late for you. They drove me to a creek bed, where Jake ordered me out. A thug tied my hands behind my back and forced me to kneel. Jake pulled out a long sword, standing over me. Make your peace, he said, raising the blade. I shut my eyes and prayed. Suddenly a rifle shot rang out. Jake collapsed, a bullet in his forehead. Another shot took down the thug holding me. Marie reached for Jake's weapon, but a third shot struck her in the shoulder. Lucy cowered behind Jake's lifeless body. I heard the rumble of a four-wheeler approaching. Beverly arrived, her blonde hair flowing, rifle in hand. She freed me and then strode over to Lucy, hitting her with the butt of the rifle. Don't you ever lay a finger on my man again, or I'll blow your head off, Beverly yelled. Lucy, bleeding and shaking, nodded in terror. Beverly then slammed the rifle into Lucy's kneecap, and Lucy screamed in pain as her bones shattered. We heard sirens approaching as Beverly calmly pulled a flare gun from the four-wheeler, aiming it skyward and firing to signal the authorities. The wailing sirens grew louder, and flashing lights appeared on the horizon, getting closer. Beverly turned to me, her expression softening. Are you all right, sweetie? She asked. I am now, I answered, still shaken by everything that had happened. You saved my life, Bev. I'll never be able to repay you. You've got the rest of your life to make it up to me, she said with a warm smile. Before long, the scene was swarming with police cars. Dave arrived in his truck and rushed over to check on us. You okay? He asked, concern etched on his face. I am now, thanks to Bev. She saved my life, I replied, filled with gratitude. The sheriff and his deputies took charge of the situation, calling for an ambulance for Marie, who was still writhing in pain, and a coroner for Jake's body. Lucy was cuffed and led away, but not without giving me a hateful glare. She took out Jake and Ronnie. Marie sobbed as the paramedics treated her injuries. The sheriff remained composed. Nope, he replied. This is Dave's property, and under the castle doctrine, Miss Brolin had every right to protect Mr. Shipman's life. You're lucky she didn't take you out too. As the deputies loaded Lucy and Marie into different squad cars, the sheriff informed me they're being charged with attempted murder and conspiracy. With the evidence we've collected and your statement, this case is as good as closed. After the authorities gathered all the evidence and removed the bodies, Beverly and I rode back home on the four-wheeler, with Dave following silently in his truck. As we parked, I turned to Beverly, still amazed. I thought you had classes today, I said, in awe of her. She smirked. Dave stopped by McDonald's and told me what was happening. I clocked out, came home, and followed the tire tracks to find you. I climbed up into the deer stand, and well, you know the rest. "I owe you everything, Bev," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "You don't owe me a thing. You're safe, and that's all that matters to me," she replied, pulling me into a tight hug. Inside, I called Linda to update her on what had transpired. She was relieved to hear I was safe. "Now we've got them right where we want them," Linda said confidently. "The firm is going down hard, I hope so," I responded. Afterward, I called my parents, who were just as relieved that everything had turned out all right. That evening, after things calmed down, I thanked Beverly again and again for saving my life. Marie eventually recovered, and she and Lucy faced trial for attempted murder and conspiracy. They were found guilty on multiple charges, including the attack on me and unlawful detention. Both received life sentences, with no chance of release. I couldn't have been more satisfied. Bernice finalized the divorce, and because of Lucy's convictions, she walked away with nothing. Bernice also managed to secure a significant settlement from Marie and Jake's estate, leaving me well off. Of course, Bernice took her share, but I was more than happy with my portion. The firm settled for a large amount as its partners faced federal charges for racketeering and suspicious deaths. Eventually, the firm shut down, and its leaders were sentenced to life in prison. Everything unraveled in about 6 months, leaving Beverly and me with more than enough to live comfortably for years. I bought a beautiful ring and proposed properly, down on one knee. Beverly squealed with joy and covered me with kisses. A month later, we tied the knot and spent a week honeymooning in Las Vegas. When we returned, we sat down with Dave and proposed starting DNS Welding and Custom Fabrications together. "Are you serious?" he asked, surprised. "Absolutely," I answered. Beverly pulled out a spreadsheet and handed it to him. It was the business plan she had been developing. After carefully looking it over, I nodded approvingly. "I think this could really work," I said, impressed. "Oh, I almost forgot," I added, reaching into my pocket and pulling out a set of keys. "You know that lot on the south side?" "Yeah, what about it?" she asked, curious. "Did you see the new double wide on it?" I asked, grinning. "Yeah, we thought you sold it," she replied. "Nope," I said, smiling. "It's your wedding gift from me and your parents. The lot and the home are in your name now. Your dad and I moved all your things from your apartment, except anything with Lucy's picture on it." Beverly looked shocked. "Wow, I don't know what to say. I could afford to build a custom home, but this double wide is solid. I wouldn't turn down such a thoughtful gift, especially knowing it must have cost over $150,000. "Just say thanks, partner," I said, extending my hand. Beverly smiled, shook my hand, then pulled me into a big hug. "You sure you're okay with us living down there?" Beverly asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "I'd hate for you to feel lonely." "I'll be fine," I assured her. "Maybe I'll finally get a good night's sleep without hearing you two all night." We all laughed and celebrated together. Later, I called my parents to thank them for the incredible gift. That night, Beverly and I christened the master bedroom in our new home. As we lay in each other's arms, I felt sure that everything would work out just fine. Of course, having money brought a lot of new friends, some with serious connections in the prison system. Meanwhile, Lucy and Marie weren't so fortunate. Behind bars, they faced a tough time, cleaning toilets with toothbrushes and doing favors for inmates with particular demands. I guess their horizons have broadened quite a bit,